The rain tapped softly on the hospital window, a slow and steady rhythm that seemed to match the beeping of the heart monitor. Inside the small room, the air felt heavy, almost frozen. Nurses moved quietly, their faces pale, while the doctor checked his watch one last time. The young human girl on the bed, Lena, was still. Her skin was pale, her chest unmoving. Mother clutched her hand, whispering her name, but there was no answer. The doctor's voice was low and final as he said the time of death. Father turned away, unable to watch, his shoulders shaking as he tried to hide his tears. The machines around her were switched off, one by one, and the quiet became almost unbearable. They left the room for a moment, giving the family a chance to say goodbye. The rain outside grew heavier, the sound mixing with the distant rumble of thunder. Minutes passed. 37 of them, each one slow and painful. Then something strange happened. The lights flickered once, twice, and the monitor, though unplugged, gave a single soft beep. Lena's mother thought she imagined it, until Lena's eyes opened. They were not the same warm brown they used to be. Now they glowed faintly silver, like light reflecting on water. Her body moved in a slow, deliberate way, almost too controlled. She sat up, the blanket sliding off her shoulders, and looked around the room as if it were new to her. Her lips parted, and when she spoke, her voice was soft, but not entirely hers. It was deeper, layered, like more than one person speaking at once. "We are not alone," she said. The sound made her father step back toward the door, his hand trembling on the handle. A cold wind seemed to drift into the room, though the windows were shut. Papers fluttered on the counter. Lena turned her head slowly toward the wall, staring at it with unblinking eyes, as if something on the other side had caught her attention. She stood up, ignoring the weak protests of her parents, and began walking toward the hallway. Her bare feet made soft sounds against the floor, the rhythm strangely in time with the flickering of the lights above. The nurses tried to stop her, but every time they got close, the lights above them dimmed and a sharp static filled the air. The security camera in the hall caught her passing by, but the image was broken, showing quick flashes of shapes behind her. It was not just her shadow. It was something taller, something that didn't match her movements, as if another figure was walking beside her. Unseen by the naked eye, outside the rain poured harder, and the city streets glistened under the dim glow of the lamps. Lena stepped out into the wet night without a coat, her thin hospital gown clinging to her. She did not shiver. Her parents followed from a distance, calling her name, but she didn't turn around. She stopped suddenly in the middle of the empty street, the sound of water running in the gutters, the only noise. She tilted her head upward, staring into the dark clouds swirling above. Her voice came again. The strange double tone still there. "They're coming." The words were barely more than a whisper, yet they carried through the rain as if the air itself wanted everyone to hear. Lightning flashed far away, and for a second, her silver eyes reflected the light like mirrors. Car approached in the distance, slowing as the driver saw the strange scene. But when the headlights swept over Lena, the car's engine sputtered and died. The street went darker than before, as if the night had swallowed the light. Lena did not move. Her gaze stayed fixed on the sky, and her lips curved into the faintest of smiles, though it was not a warm one. Her father finally reached her, his hand grabbing her arm. It felt cold to the touch, almost like she had been standing in snow instead of rain. "Lena, come home," he pleaded. But she simply turned her head and looked at him with those silver eyes, her expression unreadable. She said nothing, and yet in that moment, he felt an unfamiliar pressure in his mind, as if someone was trying to speak directly to his thoughts. He pulled back quickly, heart pounding. From somewhere far above, a low, deep sound rolled through the clouds. It wasn't thunder. It was slower, more like a distant horn, long and haunting. Lena closed her eyes at the sound, and when she opened them again, the silver glow faded slightly. She looked around, almost confused, as if waking from a dream. Her knees buckled, and she would have fallen if her father hadn't caught her. But even in that weak, tired state, she whispered again, her voice almost human this time, "They're coming." Her eyes closed, and she went limp in his arms. The rain fell harder still, as if the sky itself knew something was on its way. The house was quiet. But it was not the kind of quiet that brought peace. It was the kind that felt alive, like it was waiting for something to happen. Lena lay in her bed wrapped in blankets, her damp hair spread across the pillow. Her mother sat beside her, brushing her fingers gently through the strands, trying to convince herself that her daughter was safe. But Lena's eyes were open, staring at the ceiling as if she could see through it. Every now and then, her lips moved without sound, as though she was speaking to someone only she could hear. Her father paced near the door, arms crossed tightly. He had been on the phone with the hospital earlier, but the doctors had no explanation. People didn't come back 37 minutes after death, not in the way Lena had, and certainly not with glowing eyes. At dinner, Lena barely touched her food. She only looked out the window, her gaze fixed on the dark street outside. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like storms. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something in the distance. "They're still here," she said softly, though no one had asked her anything. Her mother's spoon clattered against the plate. "Who's here, Lena?" "They walk in the spaces between," she answered, her voice calm, almost too calm. "They're watching the doors." Before anyone could ask more, the lights in the house flickered. It lasted less than a second, but it was enough to make her father glance toward the fuse box. Outside, something moved in the yard, something tall and thin that shouldn't have been there. The motion sensor light came on, but instead of showing a figure, it revealed only the bending shadows of the trees. Still, Lena smiled faintly, as though she recognized someone. Later that night, for Lena had been put to bed, her parents whispered in the kitchen. They didn't notice that Lena was awake, or that she was drawing on a piece of paper she had hidden under her pillow. She drew circles, perfect ones, each surrounded by strange lines and symbols. She didn't look at the paper while drawing, her hand moving as if guided by something else. By morning, she had filled 3 pages. When her father found them, he frowned at the strange markings. They weren't like any writing he'd seen before. He put them aside, but hours later, a knock came at the door. A man in a dark coat introduced himself as Dr. Keller from the Human Space Research Unit. He had heard about Lena's incident from the hospital and wanted to speak with her. Dr. Keller was a thin man, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. He studied the drawings carefully. "Do you know what these are?" he asked Lena. "They are gates," she replied without hesitation. Keller looked at her parents. "I've seen these symbols before. They match carvings found on an alien ruin. We discovered far beyond the outer colonies. But these carvings were never shown to the public. No human should know them." That night, the strange dreams began. Lena's mother woke screaming, saying she had seen tall figures with no faces standing in her room. A neighbor went missing without a sound. And outside Lena's window, the motion light kept turning on, but no one was there when they checked. Returned the next day with equipment to monitor Lena's brain activity. But he wasn't sure if the machines would tell him what he needed to know. He suspected that when Lena had died, she had not simply come back. She had brought something back with her, and that something wasn't finished yet in the early hours of the morning. Lena stood at her window, whispering to the empty air. A shadow passed across her face, though the moon was hidden behind clouds. And faintly, so faintly it could almost be imagined, another voice whispered back. Dr. Keller arrived early in the morning, carrying a small black case. He didn't greet anyone, only asked where Lena was. She sat at the dining table, pale and quiet, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She watched him with those still, silver-flecked eyes, and for a moment he hesitated. It wasn't fear exactly, it was the feeling of being studied, like a subject under a microscope. "I just need to run a scan," he said, setting up the equipment. Wires, sensors, and a portable brain monitor were arranged with precise care. Lena didn't resist when he placed the sensors on her head. Her parents stood nearby, exchanging anxious glances. The monitor began to hum softly, showing patterns of brain activity. At first, the readings were normal. Then a strange rhythmic spike appeared, like a pulse from somewhere far away.
Keller.
Leaned closer to the screen, frowning. The spikes grew stronger, almost like a signal trying to get through. The lights flickered, and the hum became a high-pitched ringing. Suddenly the sound stopped. Lena's head tilted slightly, her breathing slowed, and the monitor flatlined. Her mother gasped. Keller checked for a pulse, nothing. Before he could shout for help, a deep, layered voice came through the speakers of the brain monitor. Speaking in perfect English, but with a strange echo. Human. We chose her. The voice was not coming from Lena's mouth. It was coming from the machine itself, though the speakers were not even switched on. Keller stepped back, his heart racing. The air in the room grew heavy, pressing down like a storm. Before lightning, the lights shut off completely. In the dark, small points of silver light appeared around Lena, like stars hanging in the air. They moved in slow circles, casting strange shadows on the walls. Then, with a sharp crack, the power returned. Lena was sitting upright, her eyes open and glowing brighter than before. Thin black lines now ran along her skin, like cracks in porcelain, pulsing faintly with light. Her voice was her own again, but her words were not. They are here. They do not trust you yet. Keller swallowed. Who are they? She turned her gaze to him, and for a moment he felt as if something was looking through her eyes, right into him. Others, but they are not your enemies, unless you make them so. Her mother tried to reach for her, but Lena flinched back, as if the touch would burn. Don't, she whispered. They don't like it when you try to move me. Keller's voice was steady, though inside he was shaken. He said they chose you. Why? Lena's eyes seemed distant. Because I was between worlds. I died, but I didn't stay dead. They found me in the dark. They followed me back. Her father spoke for the first time since the scan began. Followed you back? From where? Lena's expression shifted, and for a moment fear broke through the calm mask. From where the hunters can't go, but they're looking. And if they find the way, no one will be safe. Keller froze. The term hunters was familiar to him. He'd seen it in encrypted alien archives, always followed by warnings and casualty counts. If Lena was telling the truth, Earth had just been noticed by something far worse than an alien invasion. The monitor beeped again, but this time the spikes formed a pattern, a circle with symbols around it. Keller's mind flashed back to the alien ruins. It was the same symbol. Before anyone could speak, Lena's voice changed again, echoing as the others took control. Prepare yourselves. Time is short. And just like that, she slumped forward, unconscious, leaving the room in silence, except for the steady beep of the monitor, and the sound of rain starting again outside. The rain had turned into a steady downpour, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. Lena lay on the couch under a blanket, her breathing slow but even. Dr. Keller sat in a chair nearby, his eyes fixed on the brain monitor still connected to her. Every few minutes, the machine let out a soft beep, and each time the pattern on. The screen was the same, the circle with alien symbols surrounding it. Her parents moved quietly around the room, afraid of disturbing her. But Keller wasn't calm. He kept checking the clock, replaying the voice in his head. Prepare yourselves. Time is short. Those words didn't feel like a warning from a friend. They felt like a deadline. Late in the afternoon, Lena stirred. Eyes opened, no longer glowing, but still holding a strange depth that made her look older than she was. She sat up slowly, scanning the room as if expecting someone else to be there. They want to talk, she said simply. Keller leaned forward. Who? The others, she replied. But not here. Too many ears. Keller hesitated, then nodded. He helped her stand, and the two of them went to the small study at the back of the house. Lena closed the door behind them and sat on the floor. Her posture was strange, back straight, hands resting on her knees, eyes half closed. The air in the room seemed to thicken, the shadows stretching unnaturally. Then her voice changed again. You are not ready, the layered tones said. The danger is moving toward you. You feel it in the dark. Keller swallowed. The hunters? Yes. The words seemed to vibrate in the air. They devour not only flesh but thought. No voice survives them. No memory remains. They will strip your world until it is dust, then help us stop them, Keller said. There was a pause. We will. If you guard the link, Keller glanced at Lena. The link is her. Yes. Break the link, and the hunters will come faster. Before Keller could respond, the sound of shattering glass came from the living room. Lena's parents screamed. Keller rushed out to see the front window broken inward, rain pouring onto the carpet. No one was outside. The motion sensor light was on, but the yard was empty except for deep, narrow footprints in the mud that didn't look human. Lena stepped into the doorway behind him. They know I'm here, she said quietly. That night, Keller contacted a government security unit he trusted. But before they could arrive, an argument broke out between two officials on the secure call. One wanted Lena taken to a facility immediately for containment. The other argued that harming her could bring the danger faster. The discussion was cut short when the connection filled with static. Then a deep, warlike horn sounded through the speakers. The sound was so loud that Keller dropped the headset. Lena's parents clutched their ears, wincing in pain. Lena didn't move. "They've found us," she whispered. The lights in the house dimmed to a blood-red glow. The television flickered, on by itself, showing a static-filled image. Through the distortion, a tall, shadowy figure appeared, just for a moment, its eyes like two burning stars in a faceless head. Then it was gone. In the silence that followed, Lena turned to Keller, her face calm but pale. "We don't have much time now." The next day, the sky over the city turned an unnatural shade of gray. It wasn't the soft gray of rain clouds, it was heavier, darker, as if something huge was pressing down from above. The air was thick, every breath slightly harder than the last. Birds had stopped flying. Even the sound of traffic seemed muted, like the world was holding its breath. Dr. Keller stood in the living room, watching the strange clouds swirl. Lena sat in the armchair, her eyes half-lidded, her fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. Her parents hovered nearby, torn between staying close and wanting to run far away. Then, without warning, the house shook. It wasn't an earthquake. Vibration was too focused, too deliberate, like something massive had landed somewhere close. A low hum rolled through the air, making the window glass tremble. "They're here," Lena said, her voice distant. Keller grabbed his coat and motioned for everyone to stay back. He stepped outside, rain instantly soaking his shoulders. In the street, a tall figure was approaching slowly, each step echoing unnaturally loud. It was wrapped in a long, dark cloak that moved as if in a wind Keller couldn't feel. Its face was nothing but darkness, except for 2 points of blazing light where eyes should have been bright, burning and fixed directly on the house. The figure stopped at the edge of the yard. It didn't speak, but Lena's voice came from behind Keller, layered and strange. "It is a scout of the hunters." The figure's eyes flared brighter, and for the first time, it spoke not with its own mouth, but through Lena. "This world is marked. It will be taken." No? But then another voice spoke through her at the same time, louder, harsher than the others. "You will not touch them." The two voices clashed, echoing through the street, overlapping until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. The sound made Keller's vision blur, and a splitting pain shot through his head. He saw flashes, worlds consumed to ash, cities stripped bare, skies gone black. The scout took a single step forward. The air around it shimmered like heat, and Keller realized with a jolt that the edges of its cloak were not fabric. They were streams of shadow that writhed and reached, searching for something to touch. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the scout stopped, turned its burning gaze back toward the sky, as if listening to some distant command. Slowly, it raised one long clawed hand and pointed at Lena. A line of fire seemed to burn itself into her skin, forming numbers 72 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. The figure vanished. No sound, no light, just gone. The yard was empty. The air suddenly lighter, though. The clouds remained. Keller stared at the mark on Lena's arm. 72 hours? Until what? Lena's voice was her own now, but quiet. Until they come. The mark on Lena's arm glowed faintly in the dark, the numbers ticking down with cold precision. 72 hours had already become 24. The city outside was tense, streets empty, shops closed, people whispering rumors of strange sightings and sudden disappearances. Military patrols moved through the neighborhoods, though Keller knew they wouldn't be enough. Inside the house, the others spoke through Lena more often now. Sometimes it was just a few words, warnings, instructions, strange names of things no human had heard before. Other times they stayed longer, explaining the only way to stop the hunters. It would require a device to seal the gates between worlds forever, a device humans could not build alone. The others promised to share the technology, but there was a price. The link must be closed, they told Keller through Lena. She is the link. Keller understood what that meant. Closing the link meant ending Lena's life. Her parents refused to hear it. There must be another way, her mother pleaded. But Lena didn't argue. She only sat quietly, watching the rain on the window. When Keller asked her how she felt about the choice, she smiled faintly. If I go, they can't find you. I think that's worth it. With less than 12 hours left, Keller and a small team of engineers worked side by side with the others, who seemed to guide their hands. Strange, glowing materials appeared in the middle of the room, brought by the others from somewhere. Far away, the device took shape quickly, a massive ring of silver and black, pulsing with an energy that made the air hum as the final hour approached. The sky outside darkened unnaturally. The deep horn of the hunters sounded again, closer now, vibrating through the walls. In the distance, clouds twisted into shapes, giant figures moving inside the storm. Electricity crawled along the streets, and the smell of burning filled the air, though nothing was aflame. It's time, Lena said. She stepped into the center of the machine, the numbers on her arm almost at 0. Her parents held her hands for the last time, tears running down their faces. Keller stood at the control panel, his fingers hovering over the activation switch. Once it starts, it can't be stopped, the others warned. Lena looked around the room one last time. You'll remember me, because I'll still be watching. Machine roared to life, light pouring from its edges like a rising sun. The walls shook, and a scream high and terrible echoed from the storm outside as the gates began to close. Lena's form blurred in the blinding light until there was nothing left but a burst of white. The horn of the hunters faded into silence. The clouds unraveled. When the light finally died, the machine was gone. The house was quiet again, the air still. Keller looked around, expecting to feel relief, but instead, there was a strange emptiness. In his mind, then in the silence, a whisper brushed against his thoughts. We are not done.